It's just to recap, there's two high-level ways that you can serve files like this. You can have Puppet itself perform them, i.e. the file is in a module or a file server mount or sourced on a compiler or master, an infrastructure node to serve the file. Or you can have the source of the file be external to Puppet, like an HTTP server. And so the important thing to note is if you're going to be using Puppet to serve the files, I would highly encourage, and if I were in charge of everything, it would be mandatory to have these as part of a static catalog. And if you're using Puppet Enterprise, all you need to enable this is to use Code Manager, essentially. So Code Manager also highly encouraged / mandatory. Just enable Code Manager and have the modules be managed by it, and they will be served statically for you. And the other situation where the source is external to Puppet, that's great. That's also great for larger files because we're not reading the metadata. We're not using Puppet server bandwidth to do things like that. But you would need to be careful not to overload the HTTP server. With just too much bandwidth, that would be kind of something external to Puppet that you would need to track. And I've been asked, what would be the upper limit of files to serve with Puppet? And like a lot of things, there's not a specific answer to that. There isn't some formula we can use to know exactly what it is, but the way I think of it is kind of like files under source control, like what do you put in Git? It should be code and configuration. Sometimes those can be large, like YAML files could get pretty large, but you're not going to have 100 megabyte or gigabyte YAML file, I would hope. So just kind of a general rule. These kind of things are meant to be like a comp.d directory that you could serve this way, or things like that. You wouldn't want to put like an entire JRE or something, or a very large installer file into management like this. That would be something more suited to Artifactory or some kind of more sophisticated CI solution. So serving files via Puppet, keep them small, static catalogs. Also, if you're using open source Puppet, the documentation will tell you how to enable static catalogs there. It's a little bit more work, but it's totally doable. And external to Puppet, just make sure you're not overloading your server bandwidth.